It's good to be back with you again this week. We'll save that one for later. A scholar or a preacher might say that about the gospel today, which is not easy to explain. The teacher sounds a bit like Emily Post or Miss Manners describing the right table etiquette. Not to mention, we Americans don't do well with humility, especially during this political season. I'd get in trouble, so I better move on to other, like the second reading today. I'd like to focus on that. The part of the end of the gospel, though, about inviting those who can't repay is really great stuff. Or as we should expect, something from the Gospels, a constant reminder to turn our attention to the poor. But let us turn our attention, as I said, to the second reading, the one from the letter to the Hebrews, and of course to us today. It seems rather puzzling too. First, we are told that we have not drawn near the mountain of God, that is Mount Sinai, where Moses had an experience of God. But we have drawn near Mount Zion and experienced a vision of the heavenly glory. And who can make that kind of claim? We are, I'm sure, ordinary believers who do not deny God, but are not likely to have visions of heavenly things. At least no one has shared any with me here. Yes, they do happen, and we honor the saints who report them. Think of Bernadette of Lourdes, for example, to mention just one that is so well known. But as ordinary mortals, is the only answer faith? Faith and revelation. Simply a statement telling us that these things do exist and are true. No. There's also another group besides the mystics and the visionaries who can enable us to see holy things, to get a glimpse of the glory, even the eternal glory. I'm speaking of the artist. Art is any form, such as music, painting, sculpture, dancing, certainly poetry, and great prose. Pope Benedict XVI said a lot about art. I Googled some of his comments on art and religion, and some of the quotes I got, he says, "Beautiful art is not just for cultural enrichment, but is an important way to experience God and become aware of the human thirst for the infinite." It's something bigger, something that speaks and touches your heart. It carries a message and lifts the spirit. He also says, art is like an open doorway to the infinite, toward the beauty and truth that go beyond everyday reality. Art can express and render visible humanity's need to go beyond what one sees, revealing a thirst and quest for the infinite. Art can open the mind's eye and one's heart, pushing towards the heavens. Both Michelangelo and Bach and all their gifted company have given us a vision of heavenly things. To be sure, they deal with images with their creative imagination, but so do we all. And the reality, some part of the eternal, holy, real, comes through their work and enriches the beholder. There's an article years and years ago in a magazine called Christianity and Literature, and it addressed this assembly of Jesuits. Their superior, Father Pedro Arrupe, commented on or was encouraging them. They were all Jesuit artists, poets, painters, sculptors, musicians, dramatists, filmmakers. And Father Arrupe said this to them, I quote, "Today, as men seek to communicate with one another, they find that there is a gap which words cannot bridge. Youth and age, authority and dependence, priest and people, east and west, white and black, the more they try to reach out to one another, the farther apart they seem to drift. But not you. You are the fortunate ones. You speak and listen and all understand. More than the preacher's word, it is the musician's touch that is bringing the young to God again. More than the politician, it is the folk singer who draws the races hand in hand. Heart speaks to heart in mysterious ways, and it is the artist who holds the key to the mystery. His is the catechesis, not of word, but of tone and stone. He can touch the well springs of the human heart and release energies of the soul that the rest of the world does not suspect." End of quote. As I said, he was speaking to a group of Jesuits. And of course, that's all good. They have a great motto you may have heard of. Its initials are well known, AMDG, Ad Majorem Dei Gloriam, or in English, for the greater glory of God. And that is intended to motivate everything they do. But you don't have to be a Jesuit, of course. When Pope John the 23rd planned the new doors at the time, which now adorn the entrance to St. Peter's Basilica, the great carved portals, he called upon a sculptor whom he knew and admired, who was not a believer, who was also a communist. But he understood humanity. And the Pope told him he wished that message to come through the sculptures. So the great cellist Yo-Yo Ma has said that one must believe in God, if only for a few minutes, to really appreciate certain passages of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And that statement might well apply to many passages of great music. I know as a priest for like over 26 years now, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of weddings. And every time I hear a beautiful rendition of Ave Maria, I get tears in my eyes, I get goosebumps. It moves you. I have etched in my memory Memories of visiting places in Europe, like, for example, Westminster Cathedral in London, when they're celebrating evening prayer, and hearing the Magnificat being chanted in that cavernous, huge space. Again, it moves you, as the Pope says, to touch the infinite, to realize you are in the presence of something greater. There are also, of course, films that move us. Romero is one of them. And that was directed by a Jesuit priest. And maybe I think it was produced by him too. I can't remember. But I know when I was in campus ministry, every time students saw that movie, their hearts were moved. They wanted to be involved in social justice issues. Same thing with The Mission. It showed not just the goodness of human beings, but also the not-so-good side of us. But still, it inspires us. Film has that power, too. The sublime hymn, Jerusalem, sung by a gifted voice, helps one to believe. For a few glorious moments, we have indeed drawn near to the heavenly city. Even if we do not see the angels, it sounds as if we hear them. Art can be, at times, a terrible beauty, as I mentioned in these movies, revealing the dark side of humankind. One thinks of Picasso painting Guernica. But if it is true to who we are, as sinful but redeemed people, it can show us much more than ourselves. It can be the stained glass window through which we see in a single act of vision the human artifact and the glory of the Son, the here and now, and the eternal. In other words, it can touch us or make us touch the divine reality. It can bring us into the presence or make us aware that we stand on holy ground. Now, this means that we should not be patient with bad music or bad music in our churches. But what about the many arguments as to what really is art? The definition by St. Thomas Aquinas is rather broad, but it certainly helps. Thomas Aquinas called art the right making of things that need to be made. The standards of what is good art will continue to be debated, no doubt. Sometimes it appears as if we just know, though. There are certain moments when you just know. And we should continue to learn by listening and discussion and study. What are the qualities that go into good art? The making or the singing of music, the shaping of words or of stone, and the illumination that comes through paint and colors, oils, and the stained glass windows we contemplate in a moment of silence in the church. But I would also add, there's domestic art, there's art that happens all the time in the home, when a good meal is prepared and served with some good wine. I was inspired to do this homily this week because I got this notion I could bake this cool cake that I had with friends. So I Googled Betty Crocker and checked out chocolate flan cake. because I had it in someone's home. It was so awesome. I thought, I got to do this. And it was amazing. You could take all these ingredients, you put them all together, you blend this and you stir this and put it together, and it was a big mess. And then it goes in the oven, and suddenly it's separated. The chocolate went to the top, and the flan went to the bottom. And then after you let it cool down, you turn it upside down, and it's just perfect. And I thought, wow, I have to share this with my friends. But that's art, People take time sometimes to put a plant just in the right place with a candle, and it creates a special place for prayer and for meditation, even for just reading. I remember being in Iraq with the Marines in the desert in the middle of nowhere where it's just sand and rocks, and I was trying to find a way to create a special place for our Mass, for our prayer, and you arrange the boxes in a certain way for the meals ready to eat. And you put the cami netting just so. And if you find a weed, a grass, a piece of grass, anything green, you can place it just so. And suddenly the place becomes a little bit special. We can all do it. And when we do, or one more thing, especially living here in this beautiful part of the world, or if you go in the desert and you see like the cactus plant and it will just have an awesome bloom, that God is an artist, right? When you see those moments. And this is the point. All of this holy work, an epiphany of beauty. And all beauty, we know, originates with God, our Creator.